Hello everybody. So, in my previous video, we farmed up a bunch of gold, we did some Alva temples, made a good profit, and now we gotta ask ourselves, well, what do we do with all that gold? Well, those of you who played last week, or I guess I should say the last year, know that Settlers introduced Kingsmarch. Now, I'm not going to give you a big deep dive into the full uses of Kingsmarch. There are other videos out there that explain Kingsmarch far better than I ever will. What I am going to tell you is something simple and easy that you can do with your spare gold that you're not using to either buy 6 links off of the gambles or to trade with Faustus. Also, stay tuned. I have a really good video about Faustus and how you can make a really good profit on that. So, what are we going to do? Well, with the new Settlers setup, all we're doing is getting ourselves some tier 3, tier 4, or tier 5 farmers. Now, I don't have any tier 5 farmers at the moment, just 3s and 4s. I have not farmed enough gold to go gamble on trying to get the higher tier ones, but 3s and 4s are just fine for this. Now, currently, I have 120,000 gold left. I am eating through it rather quickly, but considering it took me only about 2 hours, give or take, to get this much gold, and that 2 hours bought me literally over 1 day, except for what I spent to try and get some more farmers. Pretty good. Now, we're currently bringing in about 2,000 and change Blues Anthem per hour at the moment. So, what are we doing with it? Well, we have two options. The first option is the Blues Anthem and 30,000 thaumaturgic dust, and we ship it all the way to Calgar. Why Calgar? Well, those of you who didn't play last week may not know this, but each of the different ports has a specific favoritism towards types of rewards. When you send Blue Xanthanum to Calgar, it has a higher weighting to give you Divine Orbs as the reward. Now, Divine Orbs, of course, are all we really care about. Chaos Orbs are a nice touch. Rune Grafts are also pretty good. And then Tattoos, which we'll get to in a second. So, you can send a shipment like this, 10,000 Blue Xanthanum, 30,000 Thaumaturgic Dust. It will come out to 270,000 total resource points, and you just send it to Calgar. It will take about 3 hours and change for it to get there, and wham bam, thank you ma'am. Now, when you send this, around 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 times, you will actually get a Divine Orb as the loot, along with a whole bunch of bubblegum currencies that you can just sit on, use for crafting, or sell when you get a lot of them. Whatever you want. 30,000 dust times 3, 90,000 dust every 3 hours. Pretty easy to come by. You can just grab random uniques and throw them in the disenchanter and have them break them down. Generally speaking, as long as you're putting stuff in that has 5,000 dust per slot. So, for example, a staff is like this is 8 slots. Your body armor will be 6 slots. Belts 2 slots. You know, as long as it's about 5,000 dust per slot, it's a good usage of gold to dust ratio in order to break it down. Now, as I mentioned before, I do only bring in around 2,000 or so Blue Xanthanum at the moment. If these were full tier 5, however, I'm pretty sure this number would be closer to double or triple that. In fact, I believe, remember right, it's about 1,000 per with all level 5s, so like 6,000 per hour, which means we would get around 18,000 Blue Xanthanum while this is running. Now, of course, most of us work during the day and sleep at night, so there's a good chunk of the time where you really can't have any shipments going out to Calgar, so that Blue Xanthanum will just build up. Eventually, you will be able to send a much bigger shipment to Calgar. I recommend doing something different, though. And this is where we come to tattoos. Now, Nakanu here, as well as Teanui, when you send shipments there, based on the value of the shipment, you have a chance that they will give you a tattoo. These tattoos range from, frankly, relatively useless to really, really, really expensive ones. Now, for instance, my build currently is using a whole bunch of these Tawa warriors to give me a little bit more chaos damage, make it so that I'm not so weak. Other builds, like for example the Ward Loop builds, like to use the flask duration ones. Strength builds, like down here in the warriors, some of them will use the armor or the attack block. There's also ignite and fire damage, all kinds of stuff. So most of the tattoos are pretty useful, some a lot more than others. Now, if you go look at Faustus here, and we'll just say that we are shopping in Chaos Orbs, go to tattoos. So if we're looking for one of the good ones here, let's see here, here we go, Flask. Actually, these are only 14C. That's actually surprising. Spell suppression here, yeah. You get one of these, that's a lot. 6 divines, 5 divines, 6.5 divines, whatever the heck that is. I think it's 6 divines for one tattoo. The odds of getting one of these isn't very high, but there does not seem to be any real weighting on most of the tattoos. The journey tattoos have a lower chance than the rest of them, but really, these all have a pretty relatively even rating to get. So, getting the tattoos from shipping. What's a good way? Well, it turns out, thanks to a lot of the research that's been done through Prohibited Library and other people, there is a maximum amount of value that you can send to get tattoos. Any more than this value, you don't get any more tattoos. That max amount is 4 million. So if you send 4 million worth of crops, or ores, or whatever, to Nakano here, it will take 1 hour to get there, and when it comes back, the inventory will be completely filled with the maximum number of tattoos that you can get. Now, from my own runs doing this, that seems to be around 2.5 divines in returns, but it does again cost 4 million worth of materials. If you are actively farming Calgar, for example, if you are using the Refiner's Bargain over here, and just farming sulfite veins, which is frankly free. A lot of people run sulfite on their trees like I have here, right? Just so they get the extra damage and movement speed. That becomes ore instead. If you run the ore founded maps scarab that turns ore into bars, it becomes bars instead, which means you don't even need to use gold in order to get the value to send to places like Teanui or whatever. Likewise, the life force converted to crops one can be pretty decent. I have only tried it a couple times, so I can't say what is the best way to do that if you're going to do the harvest conversion, but I do know that you can get a fairly substantial amount of rewards, particularly if the conversion gives it to you as Blue Xanthan instead of, like, say, corn or wheat. You know, if you go to do, for an example, a crop rotation type setup, right? You come over here, sorry. You come over here and do crop rotation on a 4-plot farm, and you get a little bit lucky and you don't have a bunch of loss. And you combine that with, you know, a bunch of blue altars and increased effect on like a tier 17, you would probably normally get 10, maybe 15 or 20,000 life force out of that map. Again, depends on how many like tier 4 plants and stuff like that you can get. Well, 20,000 converted with the Refiner's Bargain is 30,000, right? Now, of course, it'll be split across various crops, but just imagine for a moment that 10,000 of that was Blue Xanthanum. That's one map. Or even let's take it even simpler here. Let's say it's evenly distributed across all the crops, right? So you get, let's just say 5,000 Blue Xanthan. Well, as we have already ascertained, the best farming that you can do with all tier 5 farmers is only going to get you like 6,000 per hour. 6,000 per hour. You can get 3 to 5,000 in one map where you only do the harvest and nothing else. Food for thought. So yeah, you just build up your crops, you build up your ore, your bars. Don't send ore, always send bars. In particular, the bonuses here, which are applied, if you send bars, the bars count for 5 times the amount of what a ore counts as. So don't ever send ore, is the long and the short of it. Um, and then yeah, once you get 4 million of a resource saved up, especially if you're doing a strat like this where you're just on cooldown sending little runs of 10,000, 30,000 dust, send it to to Nakanu here, send it to Tainui, whichever you prefer, and get yourself a whole bunch of tattoos and a whole bunch of divines. You can even, if you do get the farmers and the smelters and all that going, you can even save up and continue to send out 17 million shipments to Calgar or to other locations to try and get a mirror shard, and then send the 4 million shipments in between. That is something that I personally will be doing. I am only doing the divine ones right now. I need to get a lot of upgrades to my build so that I can afford to do these tier 16.5 style maps, even when they're not actually tier 16. And with that, that's all I got. Bit of a shorter video here. I just wanted to real quickly touch on usage of gold in Kingsmarch. So if you liked the content and if you have any more ideas for what you would like to see in future videos, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'm always open to suggestions. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.